tides, I can explain how the position of the moon, the sun, and the earth affect the ocean tides. Which moon phase most likely occurs at the time in the cycle represented by an X on the graph? So here on your X axis, you have the lunar cycle, and on your Y, you have the intensity of light increasing. So, as your light increases, your lunar cycle increases, the intensity of moonlight during a lunar cycle. So, you can say you're waxing here until you're full, and then once you're full, you start to wane. So, about halfway down, you would say you are a third quarter. So, you're losing light on the right. So, C would be a third quarter where you're losing the light on the right hand side. Moon's gravitational force. The Earth is mostly covered with water. Water is a liquid and responds to the pull of the moon. The tides are caused by the force of gravity exerted by the moon and the sun. Imagine that there's nothing but water covering the Earth. Now imagine looking at the Earth from above the North Pole. So you're looking down on the Earth. Let's add a moon to this system. This creates a bulge. The moon's gravitational pull is pulling on Earth's ocean waters. Because Earth is spinning, there are actually two bulges being created. This bulge of water follows the moon as it orbits the Earth. It takes the moon 29.5 days to revolve around the Earth. This makes the time that the tides occur change in a predictable pattern. But there's more going on than just the revolution of the moon around the Earth. Earth rotates every day. Let's put a person on the equator of the Earth. Remember, you are looking at the Earth from the North Pole, so this person appears to be on the edge of the Earth. There are two high bulges of water and two areas of low water each day. In a 24-hour period of rotation, there are two high tides and two low tides. This is what it looks like when both motions. So, spring tides. When the sun, the earth, and the moon are in a straight line, we say we have a spring tide. A spring tide occurs during the full moon and the new moon. They have the greatest effect on tidal ranges. So when the moon is in the new moon position, it's pulling on Earth's water. And when the moon is in the full moon position, neap tides. When the sun, the earth, and the moon appear to be perpendicular at a 90-degree angle to each other, occurs during the first and the third quarter phases. They have the least effect on tidal ranges. Let's read about spring tides. So, when the moon, the sun, and the earth are in a straight line, the gravitational pull of the moon and the sun are combined. At these times, the high tides are very high and the low tides are very low. This is known as a spring tide. So, you can see very high tides when you have the moon's gravitational pull as well as the sun's on the ocean waters. So, these are high tides, and then two areas of low tides. Spring tides are especially strong tides. Tides occur during the full moon and the new moon positions. A neap tide. When the moon, the sun, and the earth are not in a line, the gravitational pull is not as great. The result is a smaller difference between high and low tides. These are called neap tides. Neap tides are especially weak tides. They occur when the gravitational forces of the moon and the sun are perpendicular to one another. Neap tides occur during the first and quarter and last quarter phases of the moon. So here you have the moon pulling this way on Earth's water and the sun pulling this way. So kind of the waters are evened out. So you don't really have a great difference in tidal ranges. Let's name that tide. So remember, a spring tide would be a straight line. A neap tide would be a 90-degree angle. Okay, and you'd have a spring tide here and then another neap tide here. So remember, your spring tides occur at a new moon when the moon is in between the sun and the earth, and a full moon when the moon is behind the earth. Your neap tides are where you're going to have a first quarter moon and a last quarter moon. Exit question. Describe the position of the sun, the moon, and the earth when the tides are at their highest. So this would occur in a spring tide where you have a straight line of the moon pulling on Earth's gravitational, you have the moon's gravitational pull on Earth's water and the sun as well acting and pulling on Earth's waters. So this is where you'd have the greatest difference in tidal ranges. You're going to have two very high tides and then two very low tides. Neap tides occur during a quarter moon phase because when you have your neap tides, okay, that would be at a first quarter where the moon is pulling on Earth's water in one direction and the sun is pulling on Earth's water in the other direction, so you don't have a great difference in tidal ranges. The force that causes the difference in tides is gravity. It's the gravitational force of the moon and the sun. The phase of the moon during the spring tides are a new moon and a full moon.